Here with reaction in the spin room, Fox News contributor Kellyanne Conway and Fox Business host Larry Kudlow. Good to see you both. All right, headlines you run away with.
Anybody on that stage do a better job than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I think Donald Trump is a little bit of a winner tonight because when his name was invoked, they kept saying he should be here to defend his record. He should be here to debate. He should be here to face the people. Why would you want him there when he's going to eat into your time? And I think eat into some of their sound bites. I thought it was a little flat today. I thought everybody had a good moment. But moments, Sean, will not overtake a front-runner leading by 40 points. Moments won't tell the American people what you would do differently.
It's got to be a big moment. We're in the Reagan Library, so we can say this. Remember, there was a lot of questions about Reagan going into the second debate with Mondale, and he turns to him and he goes, I will not allow my opponent's youth and inexperience become an issue in this campaign.
There was nothing like that
Even
tonight.
Mondale started laughing. It was game over at that point.
There was nothing like that tonight. But look, I think everybody did well enough to make it to the next debate in Miami, which probably is their goal. The question is, what are you doing during the 5 weeks in between the debates? These are important nights, but you got to get out there and mix it up with the people. And I thought that the moderators are very well prepared. You'd get extra credit if you actually answered some of the questions. They came to play, but they had certain things they wanted to say, and they got it out. They took on China, which is great. There was a little bit more of an economic plan on how to turn around Bidenomics and inflation. Young people can't afford a house yet. People are in debt, 40-year high mortgage interest rates, 40-year high of inflation. People are suffering every day. I think there was enough connective tissue from these candidates tonight that they can make a case. I know a little bit more about your struggles than maybe Joe Biden, but I think the polls aren't going to move much.
Yeah. Larry?
Yeah, there were a lot of little moments, no big moments. It's hard to get a big moment. Remember Reagan said to Carter, there he goes again.
There he goes again.
Oh, God. Yeah. For 40 years that people have been using that line. So it's hard to get a big moment. I agree with Kellyanne. I wanted somebody to say, as per Reagan, like I worked for Reagan a long time ago. I come into the Reagan Library. We played all these Reagan clips on my show this night. I wanted someone to say, as per Reagan, that government is the problem, not the solution.
Yeah. I actually played that clip of Reagan when he said it. The word was 9 words, I believe, in the English language.
I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help you. That's right. I also wanted someone to say that we need to get 4 or 5% economic growth, not 1%. So we should be slashing taxes across the board. We should be lowering marginal tax rates the way John F. Kennedy did, the way Ronald Reagan did, the way Donald Trump did. I wanted just someone to say that. Tough stuff to get the economy moving. There are a lot of good points on the economy. They acted more like Republicans this week than they did the last debate. Did they make the sale on the economy? I'm not entirely sure, but they punched away at it to some extent. I still don't think Bidenomics was buried today on that stage. I just don't think so. I don't think there were direct hits, and I was disappointed.
Would you both agree with me? I felt there were a couple of people, and I'm not going to sit here and be insulting and name names, that just really didn't have any business being on that stage. We all know they don't have a chance, and for them, this is their moment. And maybe the criteria needs to be a little tighter going into any future debate?
Well, there's going to come a time, Sean and Larry, where you have to justify being on the debate stage if you're still mired in single digits, if you truly want to get rid of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. People talk about unity. They say the Democrats have unity. No, the Democrats have unanimity. Every single Democrat votes exactly the same way. Inflation Reduction Act, not for the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, against Amy Coney Barrett. They all voted for Hakeem Jeffries, 15 ballots, all 213 of them. The point is we can have unity to try to get together to defeat Joe Biden. It's early in the process, but if time goes on and you just make in the debate stage and yet you're mired in single digits in the early states and nationwide, you have to ask yourself, how much can I sacrifice on behalf of the team to get rid of Joe Biden? We'll see what Gavin Newsom has to say. He'll probably bring a message tonight that's a little bit better than MAGA, Republican, deplorable, irredeemable. But I think if you're a Democrat tonight, you have to be very worried that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not even being asked what they have to say about this field.
Right.
People are going
Let me ask you this.
Can I just make a point?
This is an exit question. I mean, we have the governor coming on in a minute. Here's my exit question. Did anyone distinguish themselves as a clear person you know, with Donald Trump having such a dominant lead in the polls, as the one person that could give him any run for his money?
I don't think there was a breakout, if that's what you're asking. No, I don't think so.
Kellyanne? Same.
No, not enough to overcome him in the polls, enough to survive. So I think their best argument is a war of attrition, slow and steady, wins the race. But no, nobody there made the case as to what they would do differently or better than he did. They want to build a wall. They want to secure the border. They sounded a lot like him. Yeah. And look, I give them credit for taking on the big issues. But I don't think that there was enough clarity. And Sean, I said to Larry earlier in the day, I want to come out tonight feeling a way I didn't feel after the first debate, which is each person has a 2 or 3 point prescriptive plan to fix this issue or that issue. Forget what we want to hear. This is what the American people want to hear. And the debate moderators were asking questions on behalf of we, the people, that weren't being answered with specificity.
Real quick, Larry, yeah.
Tim Scott, I got to give Tim Scott a lot of credit because he did this riff on blacks, African Americans, somehow surviving through slavery, and then went on to say that the Great Society of LBJ and all the Democratic presidents since then have made the black situation worse, not better. Breaking up the black family.
That was a powerful moment.
Damaging black.
A powerful moment.
I thought so.
He faced discrimination, but America is not a racist country.
I just have to give him credit for that, whether he wins, loses, or draws. That was something to behold.
He's an inspiring speaker.
People are afraid to say
sure.
that kind of thing. Yeah. And the data, the evidence shows that Senator Tim Scott is absolutely right. The worst thing to happen to minority groups, and African Americans in particular, in this country in the last 100 years was the Great Society.
And they're leaving the Democratic Party. Hispanics particularly.
I mean, it's just
good to
really,
see you both.
Kellyanne,
thank you. Larry, I thought it was great being on your show earlier, too.
Thank you. Right. I appreciate it.
All right, joining us now with more, I see Ron DeSantis is pulling up. He'll be the first guest, is the host of the hit show, The Ingraham Angle, the one and only Laura Ingraham. Now, just a moment, if I may. The single most question I'm asked is, how come we don't have the handoffs anymore? How come Laura doesn't, poke at you every night?
I know my football, I left it in the other room. Darn it, I was going to throw it at the screen, but they'll be mad at me here if I break another camera. Sean, number one, I miss you, but you look great. You're doing a fantastic job. But let me tell you, dovetailing into your previous conversation with Kellyanne and Larry, I think after watching this tonight, the debate I want to see before your debate that you're going to host between, of course, DeSantis and Newsom is DeSantis and Nikki Haley, because for me at least, tonight, those two emerged as the strongest advocates for their brand of conservatism. Nikki Haley is a lot closer to the GOP establishment, the donor base, on issues regarding Ukraine and the immigration system is broken, all that kind of lingo. And then you have DeSantis, who's much more in the populist strain of Donald Trump, and probably the person, if Trump ends up being the nominee, the likely person to pick up the torch after Trump. So a debate between those two, maybe without a moderator, unless it's you, I think would be fascinating for the American people, because all those big issues would actually be.
Debate Nikki Haley on your show. I got it.
Well, a little bit.
No,
but you see what I'm saying?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but you see what I'm saying about this?
That
those are,
I understand.
That's it. That's the struggle inside the party. The populist part of the party is much bigger. It's 84% of the party versus, 26% of the party? Or 16% of the party, depending on what polls you look at. So I think that would be interesting. But I agree. I don't think anyone had like a Sacco moment. I know Vivek is coming up. He's a very smart guy. But he seemed to be on the defensive a lot. They were all coming at him tonight. And Burgum, he seems very smart, but he has to move on down the road. Chris Christie and Pence seem like they're mostly motivated by their anger toward Trump in running, and so I think both of them, God bless them, I like both of them, but that's not going anywhere. So Haley and DeSantis to me
are the want to hear.
No, I think DeSantis and Nikki Haley, that's the debate we want to see if Donald Trump's not going to be on the stage at least.
Well, I'm going to ask the governor right now, considering you pushed that. Anyway, Laura, we do miss you, but we're happy you're doing great at 7. Thanks so much for staying up and being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.